Our main theme today, the honeymoon is over. I'm Jim Check with Now Media. With me, Ian Burns, managing editor in our nation's capital. I'm right here in the heart of Kelowna with the backdrop behind us. Beautiful day here in the Okanagan. And we got lots as usual on the really big show. Big win for Labour. No one home at CRA and BC Ferries Carney. What's going on? Watch out for headlines with the word experts in it. Carney in conflict. Scott Moe looking for canola help. And Stephen Guilbeault, scheme fails to deliver. There's a surprise. Department of Indigenous Services committed to finding pretendians. There's a new word. Is the trucking industry rife with corruption? All that and a lot more on the really big show. How's it going out there in the nation's capital?
Beautiful, actually. It's very nice day today. It hasn't been very nice the last few days, so maybe things are improving.
Is the honeymoon over? Is the big question. And here's Tom Mulcair, CTV guy, saying the government's back to work order was Carney's first major blunder. And I'd say it's a big one, too.
Was it, though? Was that his first mistake?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't say it's his first, but it was a major blunder for sure. It's we've done quite a few stories on it. We went actually out to the picket line there in Kelowna and talked to the picketers, and we also interviewed yesterday. We interviewed Sherry Hanson-Smith, a former local union president and a former Air Canada flight attendant. And she said, you never really know how it's going to go at the picket line. When that return to work order came on Saturday from Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu, and she invoked that in 3 hours. The strike, they called a strike, and in 3 hours she invoked Section 107. That's the 8th time they've invoked that, and they should be calling for an investigation into that for sure. 3 hours, and that was after Air Canada phoned her up and said, "Hey, can we get some help here?"
But also because look at it, it's August. Everybody's on their holly bobs, aren't they? Or that tends to be one of the busiest periods of the year. They just didn't want that. They didn't want that stain on their government, did they? Because they would have been blamed inevitably for this disruption. Would have been an open net for Pierre Poilievre and the Tories.
I think it is. It's still an open net.
Let's just kill it now. Like, let's do it instantly. Let's get rid of it. But obviously, rather backfired, didn't it?
And I think when I was talking to Renee on Beyond the Ballot, Renee Merrifield, she said it was a big missed opportunity for Mark Carney to come in and say, hey, let's get this settled and do something like as the hero there. But he didn't. He just deflected to Patty Hajdu, who made a mess of it. And she even, they're trying to look at that story. Some people are claiming that she made some false claims about, disruptions for transplant stuff when there's other airlines flying too, right? So.
Yeah, and other modes of transport as well. But I mean, that does go back to the problem of the sort of cartels that operate in Canada as well. Like, what the hell is going on when there are only really 2 airlines in Canada? How can this be a serious country when that's the truth?
But the freight airlines were flying because there's no flight attendants on the freight ones.
Yeah. But yeah, just to go back to this, the way that this has been framed as by Tom Mulcair there as his first major blunder. Just for my own sanity, I think, really, let's just try and remember the blunders so far, shall we? No budget, deciding to allow MPs to go on a gigantic holiday during the biggest crisis in the history of Canada, or whatever we were supposed to believe, alienating Trump through many. I mean, that's got like 5 subheadings, hasn't it? Like the Palestinian recognition and loads of other things. What else have we got? Not saying a single word, not uttering a single word about the BC Ferry scandal, letting Saskatchewan stew in its own, death canola. Liquid there. Letting it stew in its own canola. I mean, there are more though, aren't there? I mean, no projects, no announcements about projects. I mean, dear me. That's very optimistic of Tom Mulcair, isn't it, to say that's his only major mistake so far. It's been mistake after mistake, hasn't it? I'm very sad and sorry to say, because I would rather, obviously, that he was a success.
And then there's that declaration on Palestine too. We're going to talk about that later as well. Last time the parliamentarians got to vote, but obviously they're not in parliament, so they don't get to do any of that stuff. And then there's a conflict coming up. I mean, this thing is like, and then the other thing is that the honeymoon might be over because Pierre's back in the saddle. So they're trying to talk him down. They're trying to say, you know, like even Doug Ford is saying, you got to come back and you got to be supporting Mark Carney. I'm thinking, oh, no, his job is the official opposition. His job is not the official supporter. The media is already doing that job.
I do think, though, that if you're wondering, how does this make sense with Doug Ford? One way that it makes sense to me is, what if Doug Ford doesn't look at Pierre Poilievre as an ally or even a kind of boss, but instead looks at him as a rival, somebody to be displaced because Doug Ford wants his job? Makes an awful lot of sense then, doesn't it, if you look at it in that way? And I really am convinced that Doug Ford, at this point now, I think he wants to be Prime Minister.
We did reach out to Patty Ajou's office as well and ask for a comment on our story and ask if that investigation is still ongoing on when she said she needed to do an investigation for unpaid work, which is common knowledge. And plus, there was a report that was tabled by a Conservative MP on this unpaid work. This is common knowledge, and it's common in the industry. And now she still says they're going ahead with this this probe into unpaid work, and it'll take 6 weeks for this report to come back.
That's good, isn't it? I mean, it could even be delayed a bit more. Buy them some time. There's nothing politicians under fire like more than massive delays to get things done, because then they can just point at it and say, you know, you ask them a question about it and then they just say, oh, we're just waiting for this report. And we're going to talk about experts, I gather, later on. It's kind of that whole expert industrial complex. It's just like, oh no, I'm just the person that makes all the decisions and is democratically elected. I don't know what's going on. Let's wait for the experts to tell us.
And Leanne Rood is the one that tabled that report, the Fairness for Flight Attendants Act, and now they're pretending they've never seen it. And they could have called the CEO of Air Canada and said, do you not pay the flight attendants when they're on the ground? And he would have said, no, we don't. It's common practice.
I mean, even then, it's out in the open, isn't it? People know about it. It's not exactly a secret. It's not like some sort of, it's not locked in a safe somewhere, is it?
I guess the question is, who are they paying for this 6-week probe? That's a better question, because we're going to see some of these payments later here when we talk about it. But the union leader now says calls going unanswered as 3,300 job cuts at CRA. So the phone's ringing, nobody home. And we're warned of further delays. So,
and it's the only way that you can actually get anything done with CRA, in my experience. Like, they've got this website that they love, and they're like, theoretically, you could probably send them a letter or something like that. But really, you have to phone them up, and then I've tried for the amount of times that I've called them up, and I've said, look, I tried to do this online, and it tells me this, and then they just sort of laugh and say, oh no, that's stupid. Like, I'll fix it for you in 10 seconds. So this is like really essential, isn't it? It's not optional to have these people on the phone.
I've waited on hold, I believe, for 3 hours once, and then it kind of does this cycle thing, and then it just hung up on me. I was
terrible.
Just like, nice. The hang up was
appreciated. It has happened to me as well, where they hang up on you. It's almost like there's a max or something that you can be on hold. Yeah. It's extremely annoying. No.
So you get almost to the front of the line, and then they just kick you out, and then you go back to the back of the line, just like.
Another one is where you're on the phone with someone, and you go through like a million back and forths to establish your identity and what your problem is and all that. And then that line is lost. And you try and call back, and it's like, get me Fred or something. It's just like, that's not happening. You got to start again.
Dan McTeague, former Liberal MP, put out this thing, because Mark Carney put out this tweet. Canada's new government, he likes to say new government, right? Because they don't want to be associated with the old government, but it's all the old people. Will soon launch the major, it sounds like, you know, like this coming soon thing. Will soon launch the major projects office to streamline the approval of highways, ports, energy corridors, and other nation building. How long does it take to open an office? And Dan McTeague
but I like how he says it's time to build now. Well, build then.
Diddly meet squat and then more talk, no action. This is what we're doing. Like, it's the same thing when he's walking up the stairs there, and he says, and the reporter starts shouting questions, and he's like, good morning. Walks a couple more steps. Bonjour. Walks a couple more steps, and then says, and how are you? So he basically escapes the room. And then he'll take one question as he skirts away. Good morning.
Yeah. And then that, I mean, just as importantly, the answer will be incomprehensible anyway. It'll have something to do with what's his favorite words again? I've forgotten them, but
Catalyst,
he'll get his favorite silly words in.
Catalyst is a good
catalyzed. One. Yeah, we are trying to catalyze.
Yeah, one of the other words that we need to do is cauterize. Is probably a good word. Cauterize the bleeding. That would be a better word.
The capital flight. Yeah.
Pierre Poilievre back, and then the media is not wasting any time going after him, calling him a pit bull again, and all those things, trying to get him to tone it down a bit. But he's back, and then he said, here's one of his tweets after with the tweet we talked about. Mark Carney is like, the only thing you've built in 160 days is yet another bureaucracy. And remember that Pierre Poilievre said they would not go on holidays until they got some stuff done. And we're not getting any stuff done. Yeah, I think
lots of nice holidays in though.
Again, in our theme, Pierre Poilievre is ringing the bell and saying the honeymoon's over. Let's get down to business. And then this is Shannon Stubbs. Like a lot more people piling on, MPs that are piling in on this BC Ferries thing and the canola thing, wondering why we're giving money to the BC Ferries, the China for the BC Ferries, and meanwhile, canola is being kiboshed. Let's play this clip here from Shannon Stubbs as she tries out her debut there on the big screen there.
So I have a pretty simple question. Why the hell is even one single Canadian tax dollar going to the communist regime in Beijing to create them jobs, to build their businesses, when that regime just crippled our canola farmers with a 75% tariff? I agree with Pierre Poilievre. At the very least, the very first thing Mark Carney should do is axe that billion-dollar loan and make sure that Canadians can use Canadian materials to build Canadian ferries for Canadian passengers. And to Canadian farmers, all up and down the highway where I live in every rural region across Canada, Conservatives support you. We stand with you, and we will fight to protect your livelihoods and your ways of life. We will not stop fighting to end these unjustified attacks on Canadian farmers who feed their neighbors and the world.
There you go. A lot more MPs now starting to learn how to use social media, but nothing runs like a deer. She had the old John Deere tractor in the background, and then that vehicle that, you know, not going to be a lot of those sold anymore. That big Lincoln Continental. That's an older Lincoln Continental. Your dream car.
Snazzy.
Snazzy. It was a dream car one day. I think that one is probably in the late 90s, 80s or something like that. Somebody could probably tell me. But that's an older Lincoln Continental there. But the old John Deere in the background, nothing runs like a deer. But yeah, this question is unanswered. We're supposed to get some documents, isn't it? Dan Albus has requested documents in that committee, the oversight committee, and yet we're be interesting to see what those loan documents say.
Well, added to the list of documents that are being demanded, not just by the opposition, but by certain members of the media and some other organizations, and even there are lawsuits to try and get documents. It's just on it goes, really. This government and its predecessor don't particularly like to have the receipts scrutinized, do they?
Did they not run on transparency, Trudeau and the Liberals? Accountability.
Trudeau did, yeah. I'm not so sure about Carney, but yeah, Trudeau definitely did.
Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe due to meet with the Federal Agriculture Minister Heath MacDonald today to discuss China-Canada trade war. China put that devastating tariffs on canola products, including a 76% import tax on seeds. That was after Ottawa basically followed Joe Biden's lead there and put 100% tariff on the EV industry. I'm sure with a lot of pressure from the American auto sector, because they know that would basically destroy the auto sector in Canada.
Yeah, I mean, strange that we don't hear very much about this trade war. If you ask anybody in the street about the trade war that Canada's in right now, they would say, "Oh yeah, that damn Trump" or something. But this is enormously consequential. It's not just canola either, is it? It's like certain pork products and some other things. This is very serious, but as we've said many times, it affects a part of the country that this particular government or this political party that is in government doesn't have to worry about very much, really, because there aren't any votes, there aren't any seats there. So they can afford politically to abandon these people.
They must be getting ready to announce another big project because the government-funded media is out there pushing climate change again. Antarctic climate shifts threaten catastrophic impacts globally. And they say abrupt and potentially irreversible changes in Antarctica driven by climate change could lift global oceans by meters, experts say, right? And then there's another
this
story.
One actually, to their credit, this one actually says scientists. Scientists
yeah,
warned.
Well, you can substitute those two words. And then this other one here is contradicts it from The Guardian. Here's another expert saying that the opposite just 1 month ago, and says that the ice flows are actually increasing. So
I think the reality is that it's a very, very, very complex series of events, isn't it? And unfortunately, and I think when you take the mickey out of terms like experts, what's happened is this extremely complex series of events in this area of study has been politicized, hasn't it? And I'm sorry to say, I know that the meme is that it was politicized by people like Donald Trump and that sort of ilk, but really I think it was politicized by the establishment, by the liberal left, by people like Al Gore. They're the ones that politicized this, and it's been used as a kind of war horse.
How do you stay relevant?
It's been used as a war horse to charge into their political opponents.
Bill Clinton, that's how you stay relevant on the talking circuit too, right? But here you go. Stephen Guilbeault had this $2.2 billion green subsidy program will not come close to achieving the promised GHG emission reductions. The department has lowered the targets twice. Why not? If you can't meet the targets, why wouldn't you lower them? Hey?
So what's happened to that money then? What's it done? Who's benefited ultimately from this? That's the question that should be asked. What was the actual point of this?
Stephen Guilbeault was the point. The failed low carbon economy fund was a good example of climate leadership. That's what he said when he was the environment minister in 2022. Higher than expected project delays, cancellations, withdrawals impacted the program's ability to meet established greenhouse gas reduction targets within planned timelines, said the evaluation of the low carbon economy fund. A robust uncertainty analysis could help to ensure at least some of these challenges are integrated into the analysis used to estimate a project's emission reduction. The fund was announced in 2016 with a $2 billion budget. And get ready for this, later expanded to $2.2 billion to subsidize green refits by corporations. It was launched quickly without meaningful engagement of the provinces, wrote the auditors. And so many subsidized projects failed that the total budget was cut to $820 million. The fund was originally promised to cut greenhouse gas emissions by 10 million tons by 2030. The target was lowered to 7 million and then to 3.9. There you go. If you can meet the target, just keep lowering it. Even with those adjusted targets, the program's current expected greenhouse gas emissions are projected to be 3.9 million tons by 2030 due to external disruptions such as COVID. Blame COVID. Why not? Global supply chain issues and geopolitical conflicts. There's those three. There's the trifecta that they've used for everything. The fund was originally supposed to create 115,000 jobs. The target has been lowered. Ready? 34,000.
And even then, that's a target, not necessarily an achievement, but a target.
Some of the companies getting some of these monies, Labatt's got $250,000 to replace a diesel brewery at St. John's plant. And then Loblaw's got some money, I believe, as well. Loblaw Company is the nation's largest supermarket, received $10.1 million from the fund. Loblaws makes enough of their own money. Don't you think?
You certainly would think that, wouldn't you? I do think it's worth mentioning, though, as well, all this money, right? Well, let's have a look at 2.2 billion. I mean, this is just one sort of project among many, isn't it? To try and get emissions down. But the plan was, where is it? 10 So the initial plan was 10 million. Is that right? No, sorry. Yeah,
No, no.
10 million. 10 million tons.
Yeah,
The
tons.
wildfires in 2023 put out, I mean, the estimates vary, but they put out something like 2 billion tons, didn't they?
Yeah.
Last time I checked, 2 billion tons. I mean, we laugh, but you'd think that would be the priority. If it was all about emissions, you'd think that's all anybody would ever talk about in the federal government would be, how do we stop these fires from, like, what can we do? Like, let's do something crazy and drastic. What can we do to stop these wildfires? If that's what the priority was. But obviously it's not, because there's like 2 billion tons of CO2 in 1 year. And that, you know, that's just like an act of God. That just kind of happens. Then they spend over $2 billion to try and get 10 million tons, which is just like a tiny fraction of that.
And here's the answer to your question that you're posing right there. The cabinet repeatedly justified the fund as a sound investment, because we're looking at anything really, you know. If it seems like it's a good idea and it can help us lower emissions, the Natural Resources Minister, Shaughnessy O'Regan, testified. So whatever, you know, it doesn't matter what it costs as long as it just, you know, reduces, you know.
But it's sad, isn't it, really? Because, like, a lot of people out there who are really freaking out about climate change, and that includes a lot of experts who actually are experts, you know, they have, like, they are really worried, and they're acting in good faith, and they elect a government like the Liberal Party, who promised to do something about it, and then this is what they do, rather than solve, you know, the really big issues like the wildfires, rather than try and fix that, or rather than try and, I don't know, if they're that bothered about it, like put pressure on China or something, like one of the actual polluters in the world. But they don't. They just kind of, they fritter money away. That
don't
give China
money. Don't give China money to build things for us. Don't do that.
That might help. But it's just kind of, it just seems ridiculous, doesn't it? It's like they're pleasing nobody. Then they're upsetting the people that think that there's, you know, climate alarmism and that this is overblown. They obviously upset them right away. But then they're also upsetting the people who are really bothered about emissions and want to see them come down. They also upset them because they don't actually achieve anything, because it seems like they haven't actually got a plan, like a real world plan.
But the pacifier is just what Shaughnessy O'Regan said there. The pacifier is, we just spent $2.2 billion trying to reduce it. We'll do anything we can.
And it always comes to that, doesn't it? It's always about that. It's always about patronage, the ability to dole out cash.
Well, here you go. In PEI, the utility, this is after the Liberals pushed those heat pumps. The PEI utility says it has an urgent need to build more fossil fuel-based generating capacity to address the widespread switching from oil furnaces to heat pumps. And they're going to have to jack up electricity rates by 10%.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say, it's like this most simplistic explanation, but I think it's true. It's all about money, isn't it? It's just, it all comes back to the money.
And here's another one, and this is where the conflicts start to roll in. Federal energy regulator warns that costs remain uncertain in the program to subsidize small experimental modular nuclear reactors. Aid to date includes $27 million for a prototype by Westinghouse Electric that counts Prime Minister Carney as a shareholder. Oops. Early estimates suggest that the capital cost per unit of production capacity for a modular reactor unit built for mining operations could be around 70% higher than traditional large reactors, said that report. Canada's role in small modular reactor technology. They're a new technology. Once they become mature, the capital cost might go down, but no country has yet produced a commercially viable modular reactor, ideally the size of a shipping container. The Canadian Nuclear Commission on April 4th licensed the factory in Darlington, Ontario for planned production by 2030, and what could be the first operational commercial modular reactor in North America among OECD companies. Yeah, so and then who's the beneficiary of this? Brookfield Asset Management, which is a owner of Westinghouse Electric. And Carney chaired Brookfield. So it's just another way to get, you know, the government to fund research and that. There you go. Direct federal subsidies for the modular reactor industry wide total $250 million as of 2023. And that's according to the Department of Natural Resources. To meet our climate objectives, there's the word, to meet our climate objectives, Canada will need to act boldly. Those are the words you've heard familiar, right? Critics have questioned the expense, but again, in the past 2 years, the government has given almost $100 million to 3 private nuclear companies for research to develop the small modular reactor designs. Experts are not funded by the nuclear industry, have identified many potential problems.
I mean, nuclear is great, especially for countries that don't really have any alternative. This is like Japan or Britain or something like that, or even Germany. They're great. It's great for them, and I think you know, in terms of its efficiency, it's such a small space that it occupies. If you compare that to like wind turbine farm, which is just like massive, and it's also really cool technology, isn't it? That we sort of forget how remarkable it is and how amazing it is. But in a place like Canada, I mean, it's almost embarrassing how wealthy this country is in terms of energy, like gas and oil, obviously, and also dams like hydro. Why don't we just double down on what we've got for like pennies, really, in comparison to this? Might be a question to be asked, but
how does Brookfield get access to that money then? You're failing to ask the right questions again.
I failed the exam, like failed the interview.
This is another Holly Dolan Black Luck story. I recommend people go get a subscription. It's about just over $300 a year. Well worth it. They dig out some stuff that most people don't get, and most other outlets don't even cover it. Like, you don't see this. Like this one here that we talked about yesterday too. The federal agency hiring a U.S. consultant for tips on how Washington works as a taxpayer charge of more. It turned out that $2,000 an hour turned out to be a bill for $170,000. And it did not explain why it bypassed the Department of Foreign Affairs. That guess how many employees at the Department of Foreign Affairs here in Canada, including fully staffed embassy in Washington? Want to take a stab at it? 13,000. None of them can speak GOP, I guess. None of them can speak.
It's just absolutely astonishing, isn't it? It's absolutely astonishing, considering, you know, there are people like, just let's stay in Kelowna. There are people I'm sure that you could find in Kelowna, including yourself there, that could have answered these questions. But there are even like people who are like professional politicians. I'm sure like Loyal Wooldridge or somebody like that, who's really plugged in and knows a lot about politics. He could have done this, and that's just Kelowna, a pretty sort of small city. There are tens of thousands of people at least that could have done this, and I'm sure many of them do actually already work for the federal government, which is just hilarious, isn't it?
I don't think you're understanding the complexity and dynamism of the United States political system that requires specialized knowledge to navigate effectively. The agency opted to hire contractors from Johns Hopkins University at a Canadian equivalent of $177,000 for their expertise, right? So these not even Republicans, they're Democrats. So there you go. So that $2,000 an hour, not bad, eh? That's a pretty good bill.
So what did they say? Did they just like say, this is a MAGA hat? Observe, it's red in color.
And then Jolie said that the Foreign Affairs Department had boasted of its own contacts and expertise in understanding America. Remember when she stood there and said, all the countries are coming to us because we understand America? Do you remember that? She made that speech there in the election?
No.
People are coming to us.
Hilarious.
Obviously, they don't understand it because they're spending this money. And it's the strength of experience that Melanie Jolie told reporters last November 8th. And I've been in contact with many key influencers within the Trump administration. We're very, very unique in the world. We have the strongest and I think most important relationship as a country with the United States. My job this time around was to talk with many foreign ministers and leaders around the world. So it's just buying friends, like $2,000 an hour. Getting your money's worth, Canada? How you feeling? How much should we send them?
But there are a lot of natural friends of Canada in the US system as well.
There is.
Many of whom the federal government and specifically the Liberal Party seem to do their best to alienate. One of those people, controversially, might be Elon Musk, a Canadian damned citizen who's just, every effort has been made to alienate that man, who literally had the ear of Trump, who got Trump elected, you might argue. And yet it was more valuable, apparently, to the Liberal Party to declare war on that man, rather than maybe try and do something like what the Europeans have been doing and cozy up to Trump to get a better deal.
There's a petition being put forward that asking Mark Carney that he has to consult Parliament for recognizing Palestine as a country. And they put that vote to them last time around, and it was turned down. And now it was rejected in 2024. MPs in 2024 voted 204 to 118 against the New Democratic motion to officially recognize the state of Palestine.
Yeah. But I mean, this is from B'nai B'rith, and been signed by rabbis and whatnot. It says here, again, just like I said, and we've said many times, the reason that canola and Saskatchewan are being sold out is because Saskatchewan is not important to the Liberal Party. Unfortunately, for the Jewish population of Canada, Jews are no longer important to the Liberal Party, are they? There are many, many more votes among Muslims in Canada, and Muslims overwhelmingly want to see this happen. They want to see Palestine be recognized. Therefore, it's going to happen, isn't it? And this is the thing. And like, it's so sad. Again, how sad is this, that it's been politicized to such an extent that, like, now you've got pro-Israel, pro sort of Jewish in the Tory party, pro-Muslim, pro-Palestine in the Liberal Party, rather than trying to find some kind of like center ground or try and look at this just purely from a Canadian perspective. I mean, desperately sad, but there it is. When
you create these programs and that for certain groups and that, you end up with people lying. We even see, because now the Department of Indigenous Services committed to finding pretendians in a federal directory of Indigenous contractors, says the briefing note. Managers have yet to disclose the findings. Well, some of them were MPs. You remember that damn MP that
in the Liberal Party?
Some of them were MPs. The department has committed to ensuring each business registered on the Indigenous Business Directory is properly assessed. And then they're saying there's some of those businesses are actually have a token person in there, and so that they can get the funding. And imagine that. Surprise, surprise, surprise.
But how are you going to find it out, though? So it says here, First Nation status is determined by proof of descendancy from original treaty members. I mean, that's a bit unfair, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure there are lots of people who have nearly 100% ancestry in First Nations, but they can't do that. What, like, this is why this is so mad, because it ultimately ends up coming down to, like, are you going to administer DNA tests? And then you have to ask yourself, is that the country you want to live in? Is that the kind of civilization you want to be a part of, where you administer, as the state, you administer DNA tests to people to decide whether they are entitled to certain benefits and privileges? That is a completely diseased society, obviously, if we to ever get there.
And why is there a dissonance between what they're calling Indigenous business and what you're calling an Indigenous business? Asked Conservative MP at Garnet Genus. It's because there is no verification. You cannot ask for proof of being Indigenous, as Cheyenne told us that. Anybody can walk in the door and says, I'm Inuit, I'm Métis, I'm First Nation, without any verification. The committee, this is a good one, the committee investigation followed the suspension of one contractor, Dallin Enterprises of Ottawa, whose owner, then a federal employee, nice, the federal employee, that's a good place, claimed to have descended from the Ojibwa chief. The company received, ready for this, 675 contracts in a 20-year period, with payments in the last year worth $16.9 million. You'd have to say he built his business around this whole funding scheme.
And many such cases, to quote Donald Trump. But it's not even just this,
is it?
It's not just
as well.
Well, and therefore he knew it all, didn't he? He knew the best way to win contracts. But it's not even just First Nations. I mean, this is like the pretendian thing is high profile, isn't it? But schemes such as this also exist for people who aren't white, racialized Canadians. Very odd term.
LGBTQ,
I've never really understood.
All kinds of things.
Yeah, but like people can, indeed, I can look like I do and yet have, as I do, quite interesting ancestry. So, you can make assumptions. You can make assumptions about people. There's a strange example here, but there's a football player, a very famous football player, that soccer player for England called Cole Palmer, who is like 50 or 25% black or something like that, but looks like a white man. I mean, what is going on here? So obviously, therefore, anybody can claim any sort of ancestry, and the only way to definitively prove it is a DNA test. And like I say, are we going to get there? Are we going to go there? Are we going to go to that extremely dark place as a society? Because if you really want to get rid of this, that's what you're going to have to do. And then maybe you have to look yourself in the mirror and realize that this is stupid. Can't operate a society like this.
Here's Doug Ford, the one that spews more rhetoric about his hatred for Donald Trump while he acts like Donald Trump most of the time. Let's play this clip.
So the CFIB is saying that if nothing changes in regards to the U.S. tariffs, we will see more business closing, 1 in 5 actually, and specifically small business as well. And the retaliatory tariffs are hurting them too. So do we have a plan yet specifically to support them?
First of all, the Governor of Bank of Canada, you have to lower these damn interest rates. It's driving me crazy. You keep saying we get inflation below 2%, we'll lower them. Well, we're at 2.75%. Folks, there's a lot of people in this room who are going to be renewing their mortgages. And I don't want you to get hit. We need to lower that and stimulate the economy. And then the stress tests as well. You know, the bank's throwing another 2%. I don't want to get too deep into this. They're adding an additional 2% in case the interest rates go up. Cut that back 1%. These are just simple things.
So the CFIB is saying that if...
So Doug's got some of his numbers jumbled up there. So the interest rate's at 2.75%. Inflation is under 2 at some points here. So, but he's the same guy that called out Donald Trump, because that's what Donald Trump does, is try to bully the Fed, right, to lower rates. And Doug Ford has been on this for quite a while. I mean, I agree with him, but you can't call the kettle black and then talk like an idiot at the same time.
But it's a funny way of putting it. But no, he's like Trump in many ways. Like he attacks judges and he's just come out and attacked the police,
he's bombastic at best,
or prosecutors, because he's come out and said this thing about, gee, you got to be able to defend your own home in relation to the the guy that's been prosecuted.
He's very Trumpian. But he uses that cloak of like attacks Trump first and then does his best rendition of Trump.
But not only that, that's right to point out that double standard there, or that hypocrisy or whatever. But he kind of speaks like Trump, or he speaks in this kind of folksy, man of the people, conservative way, and then he governs in a way that is indistinguishable from Mark Carney, for example. So
Joe Biden. Yeah, and here you go. The economists say the outflow of from Canadian funds since January is unprecedented. And this is the National Post putting it out from the Financial Post. Canada suffering major capital drain. We're working on this story. We're trying to get a bunch of interviews on this because Peter Millibar, MLA for the BC Conservatives, has said that the competition for capital, we're losing. Not only when we're talking about British Columbia, not only nationally we're losing it by province too. Like when people are choosing where they're going to invest, like a province like BC is going to be low on the totem pole, as Donald Trump called it. I
mean, just look at that chart there. If you can get that, pull up the next chart. Can put that up. That absolutely stinks, that, doesn't it? Look at that. Even throughout the entire Trudeau and Harper eras and Chrétien, and it goes all the way back. It was in head above water territory. Now Carney rocks in. And down it goes. I mean, that is surely something that they're looking at as an emergency.
You know that red mark there? You know what's in that red mark? To be serious, Mark Carney's investments are in there. Brookfield Asset Management in there. Do you know what I mean? He's actually in there. And then he tells you to invest in Canada, where he's in the red part there. Where are you? You know, if you're watching, where are you? You're following Carney's lead in what he speaks or what he does? Which one?
What is there to invest? And another question, or follow-on question, is what is there to invest in Canada anywhere? You know, all these projects, all this like ambition that we've been told is that we're going to see. Where is it? Where are the companies? Where are the projects? Like what's out there to entice us to invest in Canada?
And here from the National Post, not only has Carney made little to no material progress on his core campaign promises, but many of Canada's economic fundamentals have been getting worse. I mean, we've been talking about that over and over and over again. And then Andrew Scheer said that $60 billion lost, and Pierre Poilievre made Canada. I mean, that EV mandate, I mean, I don't know when they're going to give up on that EV mandate. You know they're going to have to. Like, there's no choice. And how they're going to frame it, and I think they're trying to figure a way out of it. They must be at some point. Dr. Leslie Lewis put this out here because this we're actually getting the lawyer here at 10:30. If you stick around 10:30, we're getting the lawyer that's representing Amy Ham here in this $93,000 fine that was put on her by the college here. But Pierre's come out now as well too on this fine here. A nurse with a spotless record gets fined and suspended for pointing out their two genders and praising world-renowned author and women's rights advocate J.K. Rowling. And then also Andrew Scheer put it out too. That's completely unjust. So they obviously the Conservatives now are putting their putting some wind in her sails too. And then she said herself, like she writes for the Post as well, right? She's an opinion columnist.
Yeah, well, she's, as has happened to a lot of people that have been targeted in this way, she's ended up in the media almost. I mean, the most successful and famous of those people is probably Jordan Peterson, who was a relatively obscure academic until the University of Toronto tried to sort of pull something similar on him. So that is a weird thing, isn't it? But it almost like it could be the beginning of a media career. And I think she does some video stuff as well, actually. I've seen her in quite a few videos.
So we're going to talk to her lawyer here at 10:30. So stick around for that. Another one that's, you know, making the rounds here in West Kelowna. They finally canceled it yesterday. They had their ad hoc meeting out in front of their city hall there, and they said no.
And gave 3 days warning or something like that. But he's convinced anyway. His comment. This has happened before. I think it's sort of it's less interesting in a way because this has already happened loads of times, hasn't it? Abbotsford and Montreal and all the rest of it. What is quite interesting, I think, is that this idea that he said it's going to still happen, but now we have to ask like where, when, how. Unfortunately, I presume he's being absolutely bombarded by media requests, but we've asked a few times, including yesterday, and to chat to him, and we haven't been able to get a hold of him, which is weird because, as you can see here, I don't know if Rommel has access to it, but he retweeted our story and then and said, "We will not be deterred." He came out and said, and then he later on said, and I don't know if Rommel can get this one, but he said, "We're only dangerous." He says, "We're only dangerous to the demonic strongholds of Canada." So I guess that includes West Kelowna.
I'm surprised. I mean, I can reach out to I know one of the city councillors there, and they did stand up in COVID too. So I'm surprised that this went this way. So.
Well, it was quite, look, it's one of those things, isn't it? If you want to cancel an event, or you want to kill a deal, like a contract, and so on and so on. If you really want to do it, you can do it in almost every situation, can't you? And they were talking about the chairs or something, I think, in this one, when you look in the fine print, like that the chairs could be used and that there wasn't enough parking. I mean, it's quite obscure. You could do this for almost anything. You could cancel, if you really wanted to, you could cancel almost any event and use similar sort of justifications. The obvious reality is that the city of West Kelowna and a lot of people involved and who live in Kelowna and West Kelowna just didn't like the idea of being at the heart of this controversy. And I think, you know, like typical bureaucrats, they were afraid, and they sort of tapped into their spirit animal, the chipmunk, and just ran away and hid under a bush.
I believe we're trying to get Sean Foyt on. We'll do our best to get him on, even if he's here. We'll maybe even go out there. And then the other thing is we have Wilbur Turner, one of the advocates for stopping this concert as well. I think he's for 2:30, I believe.
That's what we're hoping for. Yeah, I need to confirm it with him. But he leads an organization which is based in Kelowna, and he'd promised actually to demonstrate, to put on some kind of protest, but he says he's not going to do that now. But it will be interesting to talk to him and see. But something I'm really interested in, something I really want to know, and I've been wanting to know for a long time, but haven't been able to find out myself, is what he's done and said that makes this guy like untouchable. Why is he how is he so bad? I've seen a few, like the Canadian press, a couple of stories. They've talked about how he doesn't like pride marches or something, pride parades. But I don't know. I mean, I was expecting, I was like, all right, cool. I'll research this. I was expecting him to be like the Westboro Baptist Church, you know? I don't know if you can remember them. He used to go and picket military funerals and hurl like homophobic epithets at you know, parents who'd lost their kids in the Iraq War and stuff like that. I was like, right, he's going to be a proper nutter, this bloke. And I looked at him and, you know, it's the kind of thing that you would hear. I was going to say Fox News, but even sort of milder, you'd hear this kind of commentary all over the place on like the mainstream conservative right or whatever you want to call it. So I really want to know, because Wilbur obviously knows his stuff. He does this literally for a living. So I'm very interested to hear what he has to say.
So Doug Ford here doing his best Donald Trump impersonation too, and this is in regards to the homeowner being charged after subduing the assailant in his home. Here's
Jessica from the Trillium. Project Ontario, the group of advocates who are trying to steer the PC government back towards a more conservative direction, is holding a policy convention next month. They tell us you've regularly accused municipalities of slowing down new housing construction, but failed to use the power you have to actually lower development charges, a driver of housing costs. So one organizer says he thinks you're afraid to take on the fight with municipalities to lower development charges. Is that true?
Who's this group?
Project Ontario, they'd like you to be more conservative.
Some right-wing radical group that wants to go after me? Probably. But anyways, I don't even know who these guys are, to be honest with you. So in saying that, we have supported the municipality.
I think I have that in the wrong place, but there you go. Doug Ford calls right-wing extremists. This is what we're talking about in this this home invasion here, or the break and enter. This is what in Canada. This is one of the police officers describing what you should do in Canada for your car keys.
Prevent the possibility of being attacked in your home. Leave your fobs at your front door.
If somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. We have a gun safety class we put on every other Saturday, and if you take that, you'll shoot a lot better, and hopefully you'll save taxpayers.
We prefer that you do, actually. That's pretty funny.
And then this was the Doug Ford one. He said, protect your family. Doug Ford speaks out after Ontario man charged. But I guess the police department has said, no, we're right into charging him. So there you go. There you go. And then this one here is kind of the state of healthcare in Canada. And this is they lost their child in the ER room. And here, this is Aaron O'Toole. So it's beyond heartache that parents feel for Finley's family for the death. Confidence in our public health system will erode if we not take tragic failures this very seriously. And then Robin Urbach from the Globe and Mail says, I think we're way past the erosion of confidence in our public health system and past the point of inquest. There has been dozens across the country in recent years. We need healthcare overhaul. So I think that we've echoed that over and over and over again.
Yeah, and I mean, this is just it's universal now, isn't it? This attitude. It's not like there's a significant group of people defending the system as it exists now. It's just the universal despair. Well, so it's clear, it's obvious that something needs to change.
A lot of it is in regard to the out of control immigration, though. We've overloaded the system without adding a lot of services. We've taxed the system so much. And then a lot of people coming from, like countries that don't have a decent medical system, obviously have a lot of medical needs as well when they arrive. And, they see the doctor more often. And then we're going to switch
also
our focus.
The aging population. And that's nowhere near done yet. That's going to get worse and worse and worse. The demographics, as in like a sort of top-heavy demographic pyramid, lots of old people. So I would expect this. It's actually, I can't remember at what age. I think it might be like 75 or 80 or something. I can't remember when it is. Public health people would know this, but there's an age that once you cross that threshold, once you like have that birthday, that's where something like 90% of all the medical expenditure on you and your life is That's where it's spent in this like very short period near the end of your life. So if you're gonna have a population as we are, like jam packed with people over 70, over 80, and even over 90, then that's going to cost a massive amount of money and take up a huge amount of resources. And especially if nobody's having children, which is the case in Canada, one of many countries around the world that's dying, then you don't have fresh blood coming up to care for these old people. So you have a sort of a bad ratio of dependents to workers, as they say.
And this is kind of an international story. And this is we see this here, especially in British Columbia, there with trucking accidents, and we're seeing it more and more and more with big trucks. And again, we talked about it the other day, the mass. You're talking something that has a massive, 10 times the mass, maybe even more of a car, maybe even 50 times the mass. Obviously, when a car hits something that has that much larger mass, the car doesn't come up very well. And this is that tragic story of the 3 people that were killed in Florida when the truck driver made an illegal U-turn on the highway, on the turnpike there. And he couldn't speak English, couldn't recognize traffic signs. We're going to play a small clip here.
Dana, 28-year-old Harjinder Singh is expected back in Florida later this week to face state charges of vehicular homicide. He's currently being held in California without bond. He appeared in court yesterday with the help of an interpreter. He agreed to sign paperwork for his extradition, and Florida authorities must pick him up by August 27. Singh was driving on Florida's turnpike last week when authorities say he attempted an illegal U-turn, blocking oncoming traffic. A minivan slammed into the trailer, killing 3 Florida residents inside. Following the wreck, investigators with the U.S. DOT gave Singh an English language proficiency test. According to a DOT press release, the driver failed the assessment, providing correct responses to just 2 of 12 verbal questions and only accurately identifying 1 of 4 high.
And this problem isn't just in the United States. This investigation, I think it was Global that did this investigation. Listen to this, where they're this is in Ontario, a commercial truck driving school.
Truck driving school?
It starts in training yards like this one.
Yeah, I'm looking to get my license.
We come with hidden cameras after hearing we might be offered some shortcuts.
When can I start? Today?
Proper training can cost more than $10,000, but here they're charging half that.
4,500. 4,500? Yeah, with the 2 tries.
In 4,000, 2-time road test is included.
4,500 for everything.
These schools offer a program called MELT, Mandatory Entry-Level Training. Ontario is the first in North America to set it up. Anyone who wants to drive a tractor-trailer has to take at least 103.5 hours of training before they can take a road test. But we're hearing we may not need that many hours.
103 hours completed, it does not matter you are completed or not. Maybe you will ready in 90 hours, does not matter.
A third of the time is supposed to be spent in a separate classroom learning theory. Not here.
No in class, no need for in the class. Okay. No theory, nothing. No.
Before your road test, I will train you 100% for everything.
Everything is here?
Everything is here.
Any classroom or anything?
Classroom, I will cover everything here.
Another no-no is called training to the test.
You have the test in, suppose Peterborough, from the very first day when the test is booked, you can go with the S-back.
The S-back is a way to reverse a truck.
Different stop there, yeah. I mean, you can go watch that full clip there on that news outlet, but you're just seeing like the examples, and we've seen lots of accidents here in British Columbia as well, and like hitting overpasses and all kinds of things. Like the driver training is like that example in Florida cost 3 lives. Who has the common sense to do a U-turn on a busy turnpike like that?
Shocking, isn't it? But then God knows, it'll all come out in the trial, but God knows how long he'd been driving and so on, whether he was tired or...
They showed that. I mean, those people would have been decapitated, right? They would have been cut in half when they went underneath that semi-trailer, right? So,
my sort of immediate question there is like, is being a truck driver such an undesirable job that they couldn't find Americans or Canadians to do it?
Easy entry, and that's why, and it's easy entry, and undercut. That's there's a few jobs that are easy entry, restaurant industry, and now when you come in as an immigrant, it's good pay. It's good pay. Truck driving is good pay, and it's easy entry. It's easy entry, and you can bring some funding and you buy your own truck and all kinds of stuff too, right? So that's how, because it's hard to get into some of the jobs that require background training, and you work by yourself most of the time, right? Like
Yeah.
So that's why the truck driving industry is such an industry, and it's really like it's just about getting that test. There you go. In Ontario, you can basically get it for half price and get like a lot cheaper a way in.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, it sounds like that chap. Well, he is from India, isn't he? This guy that's been charged. Obviously, India is a relatively low trust society. Something that many Indians are very sad about, but it's true. Whereas Canada is a high trust society. So obviously, that combination isn't necessarily gonna. It's not going to work out particularly well, is it? If you come from a low trust society, you're going to want to do things like that, like get the license without doing the classroom work.
It's money motivated, like you know what I mean. It's money motivated. So there's one guy making the money, selling the licenses for next to dirt cheap, and the other ones are trying to pay as cheap as possible and get as fast as possible, right? Like it's hard to do if you do it the right way, but there's other ways.
But I would say, your favorite man, Elon, might be the one that solves this, because if we can have fully automated trucks, then we don't have to worry about people not being able to understand the roads or speak English or whatever, because a machine will do it.
But here you go. Here's another example of this. Is just not in the driving itself, but it's just in taking shortcuts. There's a lot of vehicles on the road as well that are definitely behind. The CVSC cannot keep up with doing inspections on these trucks as well. But there's one, a British Columbia junk removal company, Junk Begun, was caught dumping garbage by the side of the road. Because you have to pay when you take it to the dump, right? Almost 2 tons of it by a habitat restoration company. The owner of the company, Sarge Dhaliwal, said one of the employees took the truck with the garbage without his knowledge and legally dumped it. Right?
Well, this is something as well, to go back, not to stick the knife into India here, but any Indian listening to this would almost certainly agree with me. It's a sociological phenomenon, much studied in India, that sort of trash, the preponderance of trash everywhere in India. It's like, if you actually listen to Indian political broadcasts and things like that, they often talk about this. It's like an urgent crisis in India, is that people just throw garbage everywhere, and then, or some people do, and then obviously somebody, Sarge Dhaliwal, I would imagine he's from India, certainly South Asia, then comes and drops garbage in a place like Canada. No, that's obviously it's a transplantation of cultures, isn't it?
Sarge was the owner of the company. It's one of his employees that took the truck without his knowledge. You believe that? You buy that? Well, you buy that garbage? Get it? You buy that garbage?
Yeah. If that's what the court found, then I'm sure it's true. But yeah, I mean, that is it's strange, because I knew all about this anyway, because I've been interested in India for a long time. I knew all about this phenomenon in India, and then now it's in Canada, because obviously, if you sort of introduce lots of people from one society into another, you are, as well as the good things, you are going to get some of the bad things as well.
We're going to try and rip through these last few things quickly. Here we got, like the Democrats losing their mind about the National Guard troops in D.C. Crime rates have plummeted there, and they're saying, and there's the teens just hanging out with the National Guard, and they're actually sitting in the Humvees and everything. I didn't put the clip in there, but you get the idea. They're saying they're hoping actually some of them will join the National Guard or the military and give them some exposure to it. But here's a good one. On the tour, making money, making bank. Here you go. This is a clip from Kamala Harris trying to make some coin.
And now, it is my honor
to now announce Kamala Harris.
Hey, Billy! You've written a book, 107 Days.
It's good to be home.
Shortest presidential campaign of all time.
Live from New York and
That's good enough. Yeah. There you go. How to ring a cash register.
Shrill screeching, as if they're like, it's like when the roller coaster drops, isn't it? Like, really? It's just Kamala Harris. It's not a roller coaster.
I've ordered a book for you for Christmas. That's going to be my present to you.
I appreciate that very much.
Elon Musk, no fan of LinkedIn there. He's got somebody put out delete LinkedIn, and Elon Musk, I couldn't help but retweet it and say, yep. No fan.
I mean, have you seen, there's a Twitter page called LinkedIn Lunatics, I believe. I think that's what it's called.
Am I on it?
That's so funny. No, you don't use LinkedIn the way that
I know.
these people are angry about. It's just people who are talking about, like, they say something like, you're spending time with your crying baby. You need to maximize that time. So while you're doing it, apply for jobs, make spreadsheets. It's just like these complete freaks that just, they know nothing but what they think is working hard, even though in the process they're actually just wasting time.
So Doug Ford is trying to mimic Donald Trump, and Gavin Newsom is also getting toxic with his tweets, and he's embarrassing some Democrats, but it seems to be working for him, because here's Bed Bath & Beyond says that they're announced they're not going to open any more retail stores in California because of high taxes, high fees, and forced unsustainable wages. And Newsom retweeting back, the company already went bankrupt and closed every store across the country 2 years ago. Okay, and if you go look through Newsom's thread there of tweets, he's getting really kind of Trumpish in his comebacks. He's trying to become Mr. Cool, and he's even doing memes of himself all jacked up with muscles, and he's going on like childish podcasts and stuff like that. Maybe we should ask him to come on ours. But hey,
he is, it's very transparent. He wants to be the candidate, the Democratic Party candidate in 2028. So this is all part of his job application.
He reminds me of old school car salesman, like in a used car lot, not even a new car lot, where you walk in there and he's like, "Have I got a deal for you?" He's got the hair grease back. Anyway, Denmark's cutting the postal service. Maybe that's something coming for many postal services. They're gearing up to end delivery of letters by the end of the year. PostNord said the amount of letters declined dramatically in recent years. There you go.
I'd say just remember this. Remember that you heard this here, and remember this this news article, because you might be hearing coming out of the mouths of federal politicians soon something along the lines of, and look at Denmark, where they've also done what we're about to do and kill the national post deliverer. And
then here, the truth is finally starting to come out. A Ukrainian man has been arrested in Italy on suspicion of blowing up the Nord Stream pipeline in 2022, identified only as Serhii K. The man is accused of being part of the group that used a yacht to sail into the Baltic Sea and destroy the critical infrastructure.
Remember when we were told that it was very, very serious experts told us that it was actually Russia that was the obvious culprit? No, that was a really, really bad moment for experts, I think, that one.
I'm not sure if we have this next one, Donald Trump one. Do we have this? That's very, what's that? No, we don't have it. So we're going to the Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel stock tanks after they got rid of the cracker. So they changed their logo and they went all woke, and here we got a stock chart here, and take a look at it. And the stock went whoosh. You got that? There you go, look at that.
It's bad.
And then you got this Trump one? Because I didn't put this in here too. Right? Oh, I did. So yeah, so breaking that, remember that Letitia James, that big, remember they were going to bankrupt Trump? We're going to play a small clip here.
An appeals court has just thrown out President Donald Trump's $364 million civil fraud penalty. This just happened. It is a developing story. We're getting a lot more information.
There you go.
And that's literally because he won the election. There's no other reason for that. That's not like the legal system doing the good work. It's because he won the election.
But a couple things. They thought they bankrupted him that day too, because you didn't have the money to pay for that. But then he launched DJT that day, that stock DJT.
Yeah.
And he became a billionaire on that stock that day as well. So it's like.
Well, he did lose a load of money, didn't he, in that libel case, the sexual assault thing. That was a very strange one. But I mean, I'm sure that will be appealed. But the thing that it looked like he was down and out, because he did look quite weak, and then he won the bloody presidential election, and then all these cases were dropped, and everybody said, "Oh no, that would be unreasonable now." All these like supposedly serious people. It just goes to show what a sham the American legal system can be sometimes.
Yeah. It was weaponized for sure. Anyway, watch out for the headlines that say expert in them from now on, and substitute the word expert for scientist. Just avoid those ones.
By the way, that Trump tweet, really important, I think. He's come out and said Joe Biden didn't give the Ukrainians the ability to launch offensive operations, and basically hinted that he will. This is like a massive 180 from him in terms of his policy, and it's obviously he's trying to negotiate with Putin through tweets like this, and he's trying to say, look, if you don't do a deal, I'm going to give Ukraine the kind of missiles that they can use to blow up parts of Moscow and so on. But this is the kind of language that the Trump sycophants, when Biden was in power, they would have come out and condemned this if Biden had said something like this. But it's just very interesting to note how flexible Donald Trump can be, actually, and how he can just change his policies on a whim, just like that.
So at 10:30, we have the lawyer for Amy Ham. I'm just seeing if I can find his name here. I'm not sure.
The Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms has just come out and tweeted as well, saying that they are reviewing the West Kelowna's decision to have been shown Foyt there. That's interesting.
I have talked to John Carpay from the Justice Center several times on Sean Foyt, so hopefully we can get Sean Foyt, and then we'll get Wilbur Turner in on, because we're going to cover both sides of it. Obviously, that's what you're supposed to do, and we'll see where it goes. Maybe we get Sean Foyt and Wilbur sitting down together. We can do the old. What's that? What was that show on Morley Safer? No, was I can't. No, it was. I can't remember the guy's name now. He was a bit of a crazy guy, but anyway, that's it for this morning. 10:30, we're back with the lawyer representing Amy Ham, who was given a $93,000 fine, a little bit more than what Jeff Evely was given there. He was given a $28,000 fine.
But I suppose if he keeps going into the woods, it will add up. I mean, he can beat her record.
Yeah. And then we're going to keep working on the Air Canada story too, because we want to see what happens with Patty Hajdu. I mean, I've heard talks of some people saying they should call for a resignation, so we'll see what happens there with Patty Hajdu. And eight calls by the Liberals to using Section 107. A record. They're like breaking records, eh?
Unprecedented might be the word that they would use.
All right, that's the show for today. We're back tomorrow, Friday. Today's August 21st, Thursday, and we'll see you tomorrow. And until then, thank you for watching Now Media.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us.